Now, I want to ask you, because you've been, pushing the financial literacy. That's what you have been working on the last couple of years. But recently, right, you've been not just teaching financial literacy for parents, right? You know what I'm saying? But you are creating things so that people can be successful, like your son's success, right? So can you kind of explain and jump into that? Like, what was it that motivated you to actually to not just teach your son, right? Because he's 2, about to go on 3, right? To not just teach him at an early age, but then to actually then turn around and now say other parents may be able to benefit from this as well.
Okay, so I actually never told this story, but working at Social Security Administration, like especially when I was working in Atlanta. First, I was working in Kansas City. I wasn't in the field office. I was on the national line. So when people called in, that's when I realized I'm talking to people from California and all over, that maybe having children with disabilities, or they may be applying for disability, or they may be on low income, so on SSI. But once I got in the field office in Atlanta and I seen the people up close and personal, it's more, I would have a conversation with them. A lot of times we deem people as crazy, but until you get in front of people that really, got schizophrenia, and they'll have a conversation with you. It's just, it changes your mindset on a lot of things. But the things that I always noticed was, it always, like, people would tell me like something happened to them when they were younger, or it may be somebody that looked like it may be someone that looked like a former predator that would trigger these people and make them go crazy, or make them act out. That's the better word, make them act out. So I always looked and I'm like, okay, so it always go back to parenting, or, what were their case growing up. It was so many people that was coming in young 17, 18-year-olds that was homeless. And it's like, and I would ask them, and they show me their ID. They from Texas. And I'm like, well, how you get out here? And they just start opening up and telling me different things. But I knew at that time, it's like, financial literacy, if they would have been taught this early on, they only been taught survival mode. And a lot of times we just are moving off of survival. So I tied in, okay, everything goes back to how we were raised, whether we was raised by grandma, whether we was raised by our dad, our aunts, good or bad, it comes down to how we were raised. Some people are raised on the streets, and we always deem that as such a bad thing, but some people don't have no other place to go. Like they literally is living on the streets at a young age. So I didn't realize until I was working at the Atlanta Social Security office, the field office, that it's so many young people that are homeless and going through hard times. So I was dating back, and I'm thinking like, hey, if they were taught financial literacy at the age of 7 or growing up, even if they were on their own, they would be in a much better position to win, because they could utilize the information that they learned growing up rather than just having to survive. They can use those strategies, leveraging their credit and things of that nature, to put them in a different position. So I just kind of took all my different experiences and said, obviously, it was one thing for me to just teach my son, but then I thought about it. It's like, okay, by the time he going to school, and me and my wife go back and forth about it, because she's like, it's about time for him to go to school. And I'm like, I don't want him to go to school, Jesse. I'd rather homeschool him. But I had said, like, by the time he's 9, I want to have my own school. I want to teach other children. I want to be able to educate other children, educate all his friends. So that, like, that's a goal that I have for myself. So again, that's why I said, let me educate the parents, because it's much easier. Parents may not allow me to be around their children, understandable, but if I can educate you, then you can educate your child, and then the children is going to talk amongst each other anyhow. So my goal is to have success educating others, the other children that may not be as fortunate.
Thanks for watching the Lion and Lambo podcast. We hope this clip has been a huge blessing to you. And we want to remind you that we drop new videos, new podcast episodes every Sunday at 9 o'clock. You can find the full episode by clicking the card up at the top right of this video. If you prefer an audio-only experience, then we want to let you know that we're streaming through every major podcast streaming platform. For the full list, you can go to www.lionandthelambo.com. Until next time, go impact the world.